Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Fadden, and I have the pleasure of serving as a deacon to this wonderful congregation and a member of the executive team. I use she, her pronouns. I wanted to call your attention to a couple of items. All the volunteer positions for Carol's reception this Saturday at 10 a.m. have been filled. Thank you all for your generous offer to help. We are blessed to have such a caring congregation. Also, I wanted to call your attention to in the vestry, there's a sign-up sheet for Folk Festival refreshments. Drinks are especially needed. The Folk Festival is this coming Saturday, right here. Doors open at 7, and the concert starts at 7:30. Should be a great night. As was the case last week, please read Community Matters, which is chock full of great events about all activities here. And please remember to put your electronic devices into worship mode. Welcome to church.
The words of 13th century Sufi poet Rumi. Reason is powerless in the expression of love. Love alone is capable of revealing the truth of love and being a lover. The way of our prophets is the way of truth. If you want to live, die in love. Die in love if you want to remain alive. Let us worship. I'd like to invite Henry up to light our chalice this morning. And as Henry lights our chalice, I invite you to join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to First Church Unitarian. I join with Anna in welcoming you here. My name is Lara Hoke, pronouns she, her, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister serving this awesome congregation. Yeah, it is wonderful to see you this morning, whether you're here in person or whether you're with us online. We're so glad that you're here. Today might feel a little disorienting. We turned the clock back an hour, and the Rolling Stones just released a #1 album, and the Beatles just released a #1 single, and how far back did we turn time? And if you're paying close attention, the order of service cover might have you confused because it says November 3rd. So no, we did not go back 2 days, just an hour. But that extra hour does mean that I get to preach for 1 extra hour. So I'm so excited. This is my first Sunday back with you since we lost our dear Carol Tillis. And it was hard to not be with you last Sunday, although I knew you were in excellent hands. So I just wanted to say it's wonderful to see your faces this morning and be with you again. And obviously, many of us are still feeling sadness, and for that or any other difficulties in your life, if you are seeking pastoral care, please know that you could reach out to me or to one of our lay pastoral ministers. Today's lay pastoral minister is Patty Sardella, and our other pastoral ministers are David Butts and Jan Dustin. So let's begin our singing this morning with #1 from the Gray Hymnal, although the lyrics will also be on the screens. May nothing evil cross this door, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
There. Oops. Loud. So I take it you can hear me. Wow. Okay, so I know we have quite a few visitors today. So my name's Thea Shapiro, and I'm the Director of Religious Ed. And I hope your child or children will come downstairs with us after the anthem. Today's story is what to do with a problem. What do you do with a problem? Sorry. I don't know what happened, but one day I had a problem. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. I really didn't like having a problem, but it was there. Why is it here? What does it want? What do you do with a problem, I thought. I wanted to make it go away. I shooed it, I scowled at it, I tried ignoring it, but nothing worked. I started to worry about my problem. What if it swallows me up? What if my problem sneaks up and gets me? What if it takes away all of my things? I worried a lot. I worried about what would happen. I worried about what could happen. I worried about this, and I worried about that. And the more I worried, the bigger my problem became. I wished it would just disappear. I tried everything I could to hide from it. I even found ways to disguise myself. But still it found me. And the more I avoided my problem, the more I saw it everywhere. I thought about it all the time. It didn't feel good at all. I couldn't take it anymore. This has to stop, I declared. Maybe I was making my problem bigger and scarier than it actually was. After all, my problem hadn't really swallowed me up or attacked me. I realized I had to face it. So even though I didn't want to, even though I was really afraid, I got ready and I tackled my problem. When I got face to face with it, I discovered something. My problem wasn't what I thought it was. I discovered it had something beautiful inside. My problem held an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to learn and grow, to be brave, to do something. It showed me that it was important to look closely because some opportunities only come once. So now, I see a problem differently. I'm not afraid of them anymore because I know their secret. Every problem has an opportunity for something good. You just have to look for it. So, I hope that helps.
It's nice to have to wait a while for the kids to get down there, isn't it? So I tell this story for the offering once a year. So you've landed here on this Sunday. So it's a story of this $1 bill and a $20 bill. And they are on a conveyor belt at the Federal Reserve. They're being retired. They're well worn. It's time to retire them. And so on their way on this conveyor belt, the $1 bill and the $20 bill get into a conversation. And the $20 bill says to the $1 bill, "How's it been for you? How has your experience been?" And the $20 bill says, "You know, my life has been really wonderful. I mean, I got to go on cruises, I've been to casinos, I've been to fabulous restaurants. It's just been amazing. But tell me, $1 bill, what has your experience been?" And the $1 bill says, "Well, I've seen the Baptist church and the Methodist church and the Unitarian church." And the $20 bill looks at the $1 bill and says, "What's a church?" So this morning, I invite you to give your $20 bills a new experience. This morning's offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation. Please join with me in the words of our community response. We are grateful for the opportunity to give and serve, and grateful for the gifts we have received. May this affirm the ministries of our church community, both within and beyond these walls. Most weeks, this congregation has a time that we call the Candles of Caring. This is an opportunity to share any joy or concern that is dear to you with this gathered beloved community. If you wish to do so, we ask that you come to the microphone here if you are in the sanctuary, or if you are on Zoom, that you raise your hand in the reactions area. And let us know your name and briefly how we might direct our thoughts, prayers, or healing wishes. Are there any candles of caring this morning? Should we bring it to you? Is that easy? Yeah.
Wait for it. I'll just bring it.
Thank you. I'm Carl Britton. Last spring, when my college roommate was going through his final illness, he asked me to do his eulogy and be one of his executors. And I met a woman. I actually haven't met her in person. She's a fire chief out in Ohio. But she was the person who made his medical decisions for him. And we've exchanged lots of emails and seen pictures of each other. She wrote me last week and said that her son, whose name she didn't tell me, so I can't tell you his name, adult son, had just been to an eye doctor, and that there was something wrong with his eyes, that it wasn't cataracts, it was something I'd never heard of before, but they were going opaque, and he was probably going to lose his sight. And so I told her I would ask everybody in our congregation to keep her and her son in their prayers. Thank you.
Are there any on Zoom?
Lori Nearing, Jim and I weren't here last week, and I don't know if a candle was already lit for Carol and Carol, but I would like to light a candle for both of them. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Ferrara, and this Wednesday will be 20. Can you say it?
Yeah. This Wednesday is the 20th anniversary of the death of Adam, Emily's son, my stepson.
Yeah, so it's just really hard, and all the grief of new grief and old grief kind of tumbles in together. So a lot of feelings about missing Carol already, and having seen her before she left. And I know people go to a bit greater place, so the cosmos is lucky to have Carol and Adam.
Any others this morning? Should we bring it to you, Barbara? Is that better? Yeah. Sorry, I should offer that option.
Thank you. This is a candle. One is to just say that in this Community Matters, survivors of suicide loss is not November 6th. It's the second and fourth Monday every month. The other thing, since I'm mentioning the survivors of suicide loss group, I would like to light this candle for all of those people who have come to the group, who have talked about their loss, and who every one of us in the group really love every one of these people, and they give us all strength, including myself. It is I am so happy that we were able to start this group and have it the way we do. Thank you.
Any others? Okay, then I would like to ask Martha to light one last candle and let this represent all the joys and concerns that are with us this morning, but that remain unspoken. Please join with me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Once again, we have come together in love and trust, sharing those cares dearest to us with this gathered, beloved community. Let us hold in our hearts and our prayers all those joys and concerns that were spoken aloud this morning, as well as those that remain unspoken as we share in a time of loving silence. Amen, and blessed be. A buddy of mine who belongs to a liberal mainline Christian church recently said to me, or actually he said it to me through his wife. He told his wife to tell me when she was meeting me. He said through his wife, "Isn't Unitarian Universalism a cop-out? I mean, where's the faith element?" And he was kidding around. I didn't take offense. But it is an interesting question. Where is the faith element? Unto what do we place our faith? Unto what do you place your faith? English writer W. Somerset Maugham put it this way: a Unitarian very earnestly disbelieves in almost everything that anybody else believes, and he has a very lively, sustaining faith in he doesn't quite know what. Those words are from his novel Of Human Bondage, which is from 1915. So this general impression of Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists has been around for more than 100 years. Related to this question of unto what do we place our faith is the question of what exactly is it that we're worshiping at our worship services. There's a famous quotation that's attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, our Unitarian forebear, and that quotation in part is, "A person will worship something. Have no doubt about that. We may think our tribute is paid in secret in the dark recesses of our hearts, but it will come out. That which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives, our character." The last time I was in this pulpit a couple of weeks ago, I preached about the Big Bang and noted that my faith, my personal faith, has to align with science. And I think that's true for a lot of Unitarian Universalists. There's a kind of faith in science and the scientific method. Now, in my case, I personally leave open room for belief in things that the scientific method doesn't and might not ever be able to touch. I personally have a kind of agnosticism around questions of the afterlife, what happens in the afterlife, and things that might sometimes be called supernatural. It's just that in my case, I believe that if there is truth to things that are called supernatural, it's simply that science can't explain them yet. So I, like many Unitarian Universalists, do have a faith in science. And of course, so does my liberal mainline Christian buddy. In fact, he is a scientist. So this isn't the kind of faith element that he was talking about. He was talking about faith as in believing something beyond what you could see or prove, perhaps even faith as believing in something that might otherwise seem irrational. I'm sure many of you have heard jokes about Unitarian Universalists over the years. There's one you've seen or heard where a Unitarian Universalist is in the clouds, and in the clouds there's this fork in the road, and one path says to heaven, and the other path says to a discussion about heaven. And of course, the Unitarian Universalist takes the path to the discussion about heaven. And we do seem to love discussion. Sometimes, this was more true a couple decades ago, but sometimes Unitarian Universalist worship services include something called talkback. Are you familiar with this? Yes. Talkback usually happened at the end of a service, inviting the congregation into a discussion, usually an opportunity to critique the sermon. This is discussion or sermon evaluation as a worship element, as part of the liturgy. And it's sort of a controversial worship element, even among Unitarian Universalists. I've witnessed some pretty good talkbacks, and I've witnessed some that got pretty cringy pretty fast, too. But Unitarian Universalists historically have valued self-expression and the right to have one's own opinions and beliefs. And there has long been a strong strain of individualism in Unitarian Universalism. And up to a point, that's a really positive thing, individualism. And of course, I think it's fine to disagree. In fact, I'm not sure how anyone can be in any type of long-term relationship, whether with a person or organization or a congregation, without learning how to live with respectful disagreement from time to time. Unitarian Universalism has no creed. There is no set of beliefs with which we all need to agree. We do, though, historically have covenants, agreements of how to behave and act together, covenants of mutual respect and accountability. And that goes way back to our roots, to our Puritan roots on the Unitarian side. And we at First Church Unitarian, of course, have our covenants, and we recite our primary covenant each week as part of our worship service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. So we also have a covenant of right relations that a deacon will read before any congregational meeting or warranted meeting. And these covenants are important. I think over the years, Unitarian Universalism at large has learned to balance the strong tendency toward individualism with a more covenantal communalism. And in the right balance, it can really lead to some thoughtful, loving worship communities. And I sincerely believe that FCU does this sort of balancing about as well or better than any other congregation I've known personally. But there have been times when UUs at large sometimes seem to value reason or the power of the rational mind beyond almost all else. And again, particularly in this post-fact era that we seem to be living in, this strange era where people are post-truth and spewing out alternative facts, there's something to be said for insisting on facts and the power and importance of reason and rational thought and critical thinking. And I have deep respect for reason and critical thinking, but I don't worship them. And if I die and have a choice between heaven and a discussion about heaven, I'm definitely going to heaven. Our own covenant, as you know, says that we will seek the truth in love. And I think it's equally important to speak the truth in love. The in love part is very important, it's critical. It's important to speak our truths, but it's important in covenantal community to speak those truths in love. And I would go so far as to say that if I can't figure out a way to speak my truth in love, I try to resist the temptation to speak that truth until I can figure out a way to speak it in love. At my best, I wait until I figure out how to speak the truth in love, because words can cause harm. One thing that's become increasingly clear to me over time is that having discussions about any marginalized group of people can be very painful for members of that group. It's difficult to be the subject of a discussion as a member of a group that is oppressed, particularly discussion by those who are not part of that group. And it's wonderful to have intellectual curiosity, intellectual integrity, and intellectual discussions. But, for instance, hearing a group of heterosexuals have intellectual discussion about lesbianism is going to be difficult for me to listen to without intense discomfort and possibly pain or even harm, depending on how the conversation goes. To paraphrase something that I recently saw on social media, if a marginalized group tells you that a word or phrase is harmful toward them or toxic to them, it's not really an invitation in that moment to debate. Sometimes it's more important to step back and listen, even if you're sure you're right, because no one can know what it's like to be in someone else's situation. And so reason and intellectual discussion does have its limitations. I keep coming back to something that the great 20th century theologian Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said. He said, "When I was young, I admired clever people. Now that I am old, I admire kind people." And speaking for myself, the older I get, the more kindness, not just niceness, which can be sort of on the surface and shallow, but kindness, the more kindness impresses me and matters to me. And you folks here at FCU get caught in the act of being kind quite often, which is wonderful. Kindness. What is kindness? I asked artificial intelligence. I jumped on the bandwagon. And I asked artificial intelligence what kindness was, and here's what it came up with. Kindness is a type of behavior that involves acts of generosity, consideration, assistance, or concern for others without expecting praise or reward in return. It's often considered to be motivated by the desire to help another, not to gain explicit reward or to avoid explicit punishment. That's pretty good, AI. Or if I were going to say it in fewer words, perhaps kindness is a type of behavior motivated by love and wanting to share thoughtful acts of love with others. It's again that in love part, that seek and speak the truth in love. Now, you don't have to agree with me because we are, after all, Unitarian Universalists, but I put my faith in love. I put my faith in the power of love, love with a capital L, that agape love. Love for me is more important even than reason. And putting my faith in love means, to a large extent, putting my faith in others. I do affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, as is our first Unitarian Universalist principle. That doesn't mean that I trust that people will always act in love. We know that's not true. I know I don't act in love all the time. We all have our lesser moments. But I put my faith in the ability of humans, when they are well and when their basic human needs are met, to act in love. I put my faith in the ability of humans, if they have been shown love and given love, to act in love. Maybe not all the time, but much of the time. I have faith in love and the ability of humans to act in love in spite of some apparent evidence to the contrary. I'm excited that on the last Sunday of this month, November 26th, Chris Ursuline and Cindy Highland will lead a service about some new words that will be decided upon for our Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws. It's Article 2, which doesn't sound exciting, except that's where the covenants live. That's where the closest thing we have to spelling out what our faith is trying to be can be found. And the proposed changes would center our covenant, and in some ways our faith, on love. It can help to center our faith on meaningful love, which requires action, loving and even transformational action and service in the world. Here at FCU, our covenant says that service is our law. My colleague, the Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh, has said that our theology seems to be one of practice, and service is perhaps our core practice. Not coincidentally, the most important Unitarian Universalist ritual, starting in the late 20th century and continuing to this day, of course, is the lighting of the chalice. The flaming chalice, a symbol our denomination got from the Unitarian, now the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The flaming chalice meant to symbolize loving service and sacrifice. And so in lighting a chalice at the beginning of worship, as almost all current Unitarian Universalist congregations do, the centrality of loving service at the core of who we are is enshrined in ritual. If loving service is our theological core, then we are firmly in the tradition of praxis or practice-oriented religions. But there's one more important piece. Our fourth Unitarian Universalist principle is that we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Searching or seeking is the other important part of our practice, along with service. And reason certainly has its place here. As the Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh has said, the language of our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle, which speaks of the interdependent web of all existence, is our new God language. And I would add, lest we forget, that the full phrase is the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, which notes our place, which shouldn't really be at the center. I think in the 21st century, Unitarian Universalism will need to add to the emphasis on loving humanitarian service an emphasis on service to a broader direction, embracing Gaia, the earth as a living ecosystem. The growing climate catastrophe demands it. And I think this is where our praxis of seeking might be more spiritually satisfying than ever. With our form of modern God talk, focusing on the interdependent web of all existence, or the spirit of life, which we often sing, or as I and others sometimes say, ultimate mystery. We revere the connectedness of all things and honor that which is beyond human knowing, beyond perhaps reason. I believe that Unitarian Universalists come together to honor the mystery, even if it's not always named as such. In that sense, Unitarian Universalists are more mystical than it might first seem. We come together with wonder to honor our connections and common, if mysterious, origins. So no, in closing, I don't think Unitarian Universalism is a cop-out. Ours is a praxis-oriented faith, a seeker's faith centered on love and loving, transforming, loving service. And I'm going to tell my buddy that later today, right after he passes me the beer nuts. May we embrace the best of all that we are. May we indeed center ourselves on love and all that love can bring forth. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 298 in the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses. The lyrics will also be on the screen. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. For our closing words, if you are comfortable and the person next to you is comfortable, you can hold hands or touch elbows or feet or, whatever works. Or simply put your hands up and feel the energy between us. It's more energy than I wanted. Friends, you are a loving, committed people. You act with loving service. You are so often caught being truly kind. May we ever be caught in acts of kindness. May we ever be found to be secretly incredibly loving, or maybe not so secretly. May we be the best we can, always acting in love. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
I think we're in coffee hour mode now.
I think we are. Good morning.